Serious. Teachers, what is the worst thing you've seen a student do? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 10. A different type of bad than most of these. I was a teacher at a poor inner-city school. I had a lot of wonderful students, but some difficult ones. One was the worst, clearly bright, but was always sleeping through class and acting up and never doing homework. I lived about 30 minutes away. One night, I stopped by the local wall after a night out with friends. It was at least 11:30 p.m., and I was already dreading the early morning drive to school. And who should be checking me out about my own problem student? He was working late to make money for his family and then getting home at 1 o'clock a.m. or later before heading into school on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. He was a smart kid. Really smart. I hope things worked out for him, but I can't help but wonder what would have happened if he'd been allowed to have a childhood and focus on his education. Number 9. There was a loud pop and a flash in the back corner of the classroom. I asked the student sitting there what happened. She said it was firecrackers. I sent her to the office. While she was still in the office, I realized the electrical outlets in the room didn't work. At that point, another student fessed up that the student sent to the office had put a pair of scissors in the outlet. I'm not sure why that student thought it was better to lie and claim she was doing fireworks inside the school. Number 8. When I was teaching preschool, I had a little girl between 3 to 4 walk up to another girl who was sitting on the rug reading a book, grab her by the hair, and slap her head into the wall. They hadn't been interacting in any way prior. When I asked her why she did it, she said she wanted her to know it hurts. Wow, this unlocked a memory. In 3rd grade for gym, we sat on a line in alphabetical order. I was at the very end. The girl next to me was from another class, so I didn't know her. She was a bit weird, but over the course of a few weeks, we were friendly with one another and would chat. One day, with no provocation and no warning, she grabbed me by my hair and slammed my face into the hardwood hard enough to give me a nosebleed. Lucky she didn't break my nose. Number 7. My favorite teacher at high school was a very kind and lenient man. Do your work, be respectful, and follow the major school rules, and you and him would be cool. The one thing that would seem minor, but that he was very strict about, was taking any medication in any way, shape, or form in his classroom. One day, I needed to take some Advil for cramps and asked to take it. He said I needed to go to the nurse for permission. I ended up asking him why he's so strict on it. It turns out he had a student pass out in class one day at his former school. He tried to wake her up and called the nurse, but she wouldn't wake up. They called 911, and by the time they got there, she had died of an OD on narcotics she took in the bathroom that she had hidden in a Tylenol bottle. I don't know how he went back to teaching after that. Number 6. My wife has a few. This is only one. During class, one girl was sitting with her hands in her laps, shaped like a bowl. Upon further inspection, I noticed she was collecting her spit in her hands. Said her name, eye contact. She drinks it, wipes her hands on her shirt. She didn't make a move to ask to wash hands, so I sent her to. Number 5. It's a 3-way tie for me. Student 1, steal my class pet, a fish that I really loved. Claimed to flush it down the toilet. Another student said they gave it away to a kid on the street, a water bottle. Student 2 raised their hand in a fist like they were going to hit me when I was visibly pregnant to see me flinch. They repeated this gesture 3 times. I wasn't their teacher. I just asked them to stop banging on random doors and go to class. Student 3 put his finger in his throat and forced himself to throw up on my floor. I asked him why he just did that. He said to go to the nurse. Why didn't he just ask, though? Why start with forcing yourself to puke on my classroom carpet? I quit teaching. The kids and their parents and the admin are raising a generation that isn't going to understand consequences. We're creating sociopaths. I also grew tired of parents screaming at me for the dumbest reasons. I didn't allow phones out in my classes. Another wanted me to pay for her internet at home. And finally, I was not paid enough. I was expected to subsidize the education system. Number 4. The boys in this one class had an extremely strong hierarchy. One of the boys was the king of the hill, and all the other boys would do anything he said or wanted them to do. These boys are 10 years old, by the way. If you asked who was the strongest in the class, all of them would yell out his name, and if someone disagreed, they would attack him and harass him until he agreed that the king of the hill was the strongest. Same goes for the smartest, coolest, best-looking, everything else you can imagine. He could ask the other students to clean up his desk or bring him something, and they would do it instantly. At recess, he was always the team leader, and if you asked which team won at the end, they would simply say his name. I can name countless more times and moments of how strong his leadership was. However, let's get to the bad part. In the dressing room before PE, the leader decided that they should all play a game where they strangle each other. This game was that he strangled each and every one of them, and if anyone wanted to, they could strangle him as well. Of course, nobody dared to do that. So after strangling everyone, a teacher found out about this, and still the boys protected him, saying it did not hurt, and it was a fun game. Horrifying to think of what those children had to go through. Number 3. I was talking to a kid about Pokemon one day during their lunchtime. I'm the band director, and a lot of band kids come to the band room for lunch. We were having a good time. He's a great tuba player, and I tell him I can't wait to see him tomorrow. He took a rope and hung himself in the last period of the day by kicking a desk out from under him. Luckily, the teacher he was with was able to somehow get to him, but I ran down in time, hearing the screaming, and was in time to see him hanging there as others tried to support him enough to keep him from dying. Kid was gotten down, but that was awful. It's so hard to tell sometimes, even when you're right there with them, right before they try it. Number 2. I was teaching for 3 months in a terrible inner-city school in London, UK. Terrible because the school's management was super ridiculous and refused protecting or standing up for their teachers. I quit after 3 months. At the end of the first term, the school begged me to stay and promised me a pay increase. Here are some highlights. 1. A female 15-year-old student pulled out a used tampon from her vagina during class and chucked it on my colleague's female face, telling her to f***ing shut up. 2. A 16-year-old female student spat on my face while calling me a f***ing poof. The school's head teacher put her on detention for an hour as punishment, while the student was laughing at me, saying, "You see, all I got is a free lesson, now f*** off." The school refused to suspend her and let me know that if I call the police to charge her with assault, they will support the student, and refuse to acknowledge the attack to protect the school's reputation. 3. A male student smeared his speech on a huge wall in the boys' toilet, writing with it. 4. A group of 6 to 7 students 16 to 17 years old surrounded a male colleague, pushing him from one to another, took his glasses, very high prescription, rendering him practically blind, breaking them, then beating him and kicking him. The school refused to investigate as he couldn't identify any of the students. He couldn't see the faces without his glasses. He quit the school the same day. This place was a nightmare. Number 1. Not in my class, but a kid in Egypt locked another kid in a cabinet and didn't tell anyone. Took several minutes to find her because he was no help. Might have been faster if she weren't silently sobbing in the cabinet. Several of us had to help search. This kid was a monster. I heard that he stabbed a kid with scissors. School still refused to discipline him because his parents were paying tuition. Alright folks, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your own story or thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. I'll see you in the next video.